What's up, y'all? We're back with the live stream. Actually, it's Wednesday night. I had to switch my live stream day just because hey, why is that off center? I had to switch my live stream day, y'all. Just because Tuesdays weren't working out. I had too much stuff going on Tuesdays, and Wednesdays is kind of more of a natural night to do it. So that's what we are on tonight. On tonight's live stream, I got a lot of ground to cover. There's a lot of stuff I want to chop it up about. And the reality is, I may not get through this entire thing. Because my ADHD was firing. I was doing a little bit of doom scrolling, stumbled across our favorite super villain. Like, she looks like some kind of super villain off of the Tick. We're talking about Laura Loomer, our favorite sometimes neo-Nazi, sometimes not. Like right now, she mad on social media because the racists that she brought in to the fold on the right are now banging on her because of her stances on Israel. Because the thing that, for some reason, I think it escapes people. I think it escapes folks is, and this is one thing I've always heard, I don't trust people that are racist against one group, but you cool. Like I don't buy that, because it's only a matter of time. I had in college, we knew a little white dude that was on that, where a dude was mad. Like, I didn't really mess with him like that, but bro was like super anti-Semitic. Like, he was sounding like some straight up Nazi, some little neo-Nazi stuff. He was talking crazy. And he's like, I don't like dudes. I don't mess with that, bro. Like, I don't vibe with, you hate this one group, but you cool with black folks, or you don't like black folks, but you cool with Mexicans. I don't buy that. And so she been Laura Loomer been banging on Jasmine Crockett and trolling and talking about all the ghetto black, like, just crazy, talking crazy to black folks online. And now them racists is on her neck, and she's like, there's too many racists in the GOP under the tent. You brought this on yourself. Have fun. She looked like bro from Tango and Cash, bro. The dude that, I'll pop his face up on the screen. But and matter of fact, I'll put them side by side. We're gonna look up Laura Loomer. And then I'm gonna say Laura Loomer, Tango and Cash. Oh wow, it all pops up. Oh my god. Like it's a term. See, I'm not the only one that's petty, bro. I'm not the only one that's petty. I love that for her. Yeah, but she looked like bro from Tango and Cash, bro. Like, I can't front. Like, I can't pretend anymore that she don't look like the dude from Tango and Cash, because she do. And she's brought all the heat on herself for having, like, yeah, boom, right there. I said it from my lips to this dude's X account. I'm about to put it up on the screen, bro. So my ADHD, like I said, my ADHD is going tonight. And so I went down the rabbit hole because Laura Loomer was getting on my nerves. And I'm looking at her, I'm like, dude, she looks mad familiar, bro. Like, she looks like I've seen her before. And like I said, she looked like dude from Tango and Cash. I'm not the only one who thought that. Great minds think alike. This dude, like, look at her. And she looks like I said, a super villain off the, remember the show The Tick, where they had these exaggerated supervillains? Like, they had the dude with the chair for a head, chair face. She looks like she could be some exaggerated character from The Tick. Well, he's a comedy writer too. Hey, I thought I was cooking with that, bro. I thought I was cooking with this entire Laura Loomer looks like bro from Tango and Cash. I guess, there are no new ideas. Anyway, on to the show. Tonight we're gonna do a little bit of Ask a Dad. And I got a couple of other things. I need to get into comic book stuff, bro. I've had a rough week, and so I need to escape to my happy place, and that's ranting about comic books. But before we get into the comic book nerdiness, let's do a little bit of Ask a Dad. I'm still here taking questions. If you have questions that you want to ask a dad, anything, I'm a little bit older than a lot of the other blurs in the space, and so I have a little bit more lived experience, and I'm always eager to share. My background before I started my own business was I worked in all levels of working with kids and families and stuff. And so I've seen pretty much everything. And when I say pretty much everything, I've worked on the front lines of residential care, to case management, to managed family support workers, to building and establishing my own residential programs that have schools in them and stuff like that. I've done it all. And so I feel like I have a pretty informed perspective. I mean, I'm not the expert by any means. There's going to be stuff that you probably need to unpack with a therapist, but if you just want some quick advice, I'm here to give it. That's one. Two, I am going to be taking some of this to TikTok, bro. Facebook still, my war with Facebook is still ongoing. They still on they still on their BS. And I'm still suspended for saying a true statement, literally factually true, that you can look up online. And it's not the anti-trans kind of where it's a factual kind of, where you're just being a trolling asshole. It was more or less like we were talking about Lawrence Taylor in one of my football groups. I said, yeah, well, I mean, cocaine is a performance enhancing drug, because they're talking about it was an interview where he's talking about his drug use. So yeah, cocaine is a performance enhancing drug. It's true. Every sports sanctioning body, the anti-doping agency, classifies it as a performance enhancing drug. Apparently Facebook thought I was promoting cocaine use. I don't know. It was stupid. And it's all the fact that it has to do with, it was an AI picked up on it. And I had no level of human review or intervention or anything. And so the machine determined that this was an objectionable comment, even though the machine doesn't understand context, nuance, subtext, pretext, apparently doesn't understand that, sanctioning bodies do consider cocaine a performance enhancing drug. I'm not saying it to be like, oh, go out and try it. I'm saying that's why sports bodies sanction it as one, because it's something that does that's what people use it for. It's what some folks use it for. So that's kind of what it is. Anyway, Ask a Dad. So I'm gonna go through. I have my own generated questions. I just want y'all to jump in here. If you got your own stuff, hit me on my socials, and I will be happy to answer them on the stream. You can jump in my inbox, and I'll be happy to answer stuff on screen. So here's some questions. All right, why does it feel like I'm behind when everybody else my age is struggling too? Because you're always going to be your own biggest critic. Like, you, and you are completely familiar with your internal experience. And so you are comparing your outcomes to the outcomes you imagined for yourself. And sometimes it's not fair. Like, comparison is the thief of joy. And so, and I'm speaking from the heart, because I do this myself too. I have a really strong negative inner voice, and if I don't have my druthers about me, if I allow it to happen, it will completely drag me down. And so, everybody's struggling. What happens is, especially on social media, and I've said it plenty of times on here, on social media, you're constantly comparing your highlights to other people's outtakes. Okay. And so, but when you sit down and have like real conversations with people, and it could be even people that you're related to, people that are your family and stuff, when you actually sit down and have conversations with them, this aspirational life that they're living, that you're comparing yourself to, you realize they aren't necessarily happy with it either. But social media kind of forces us into this weird position where you're comparing people's best moments to your average mundane tasks on a day-to-day basis. That's why you feel like you're behind, because the only frame of reference you have is this edited world that you see on social media. People don't normally post the shit that goes wrong in their life on their social media. I'm a weird one. I do, But that's just because I overshare. No, it's a weird thing, and I think social media does kind of make it worse. Instagram makes it worse. You see somebody like, hey man, they in Costa Rica again, not knowing that they behind on their student loans, and the people are calling about their car, and so they got to hide their car so it doesn't get repoed. Like, you never know what somebody's actually experiencing, but the only thing you compare it to is the highlights you see on social media. LinkedIn is really bad with that. I've seen people that were literally on the verge of losing their jobs, sitting there talking about how happy they were with their career and stuff like that, and they were miserable at their jobs. It's just what it is. Our our internal experience is subjective. People don't really know what's going on behind the veil. And so part of this is in an internal monologue that you're going to have to address with yourself and understand that people are only going to show you their best sides. Okay. Um, is having standards the same as being emotionally unavailable? Interesting question. And I think that's more of a relational question. Um, Here's the thing. I think when we're sitting down looking at relationships, you have to determine what your absolute deal breakers are. And then you also have to weigh out, are these deal breakers things that will make you question your entire desire to want to associate with a person, or are they just minor inconvenience things that are pissing you off? Because I guarantee you, some of the things that you consider deal breakers are more minor, and if you saw somebody else's deal breakers applied to you, you'd be like, damn, they're really strict. Um, I don't think having standards is a bad thing. Um, but I think when we try to take a super logical approach to how we interact with other people in a romantic or partnership basis, um, we got to understand that it's possible to be completely detached and rational as a human being. I see dudes on there talking about, they do it turns into the gender war kind of thing, right? But the reality of the situation is, if you remove somebody's ability to have emotions attached to their decision making, they can't make decisions. That is a disability. You've disabled that person. It's a brain injury, like literally. um it has something to do with split brain confabulation and all kinds of other high-minded nerdy cognitive science stuff that I'm just recalling from a text I read years and years ago. But when you remove somebody's ability to utilize their emotions and incorporate that into their decision making, you basically disabled this person, because every decision you make is based on your emotions. And no matter how logical you think they are, at the end of the day, there's still some level of emotions that are in your decision making. And so when you're saying, if we're saying having standards, um, I don't think you should give up what your standards are, but at the same time, understand that sometimes you get in a relationship with somebody and you revise your standards because they mean that much to you. And a relationship is not always going to be a 50-50 thing. It's not always going to be that level of transactional. Okay. Sometimes one partner is going to be 80, it's going to be at 80, maybe at 20. Sometimes it may be 75-25. Sometimes it may be 60-40. And so this idea that you're going to be rational through your entire relationship is a relatively new invention. And I know people want to protect their hearts, but that's part of the gamble that you do when you interact with people in an intimate way. Okay. But being emotionally unavailable, I think sometimes people will utilize um, their standard as kind of a shield, because they're trying to protect opening up vulnerable aspects of themselves to somebody. And so they'll say, well, this is a standard I have, as opposed to, I don't feel comfortable broaching this with you yet. There's something in me that doesn't feel comfortable letting you into this layer of who I am as a person yet. And so we'll try to say it's a standard. Um, I see a lot of young men on here specifically complaining about, you know, Don't share all this stuff with a woman because they're just going to throw it in your face. And invariably, every time you start digging, it's like, well, what happened was you bonded with this person. You went through that initial bonding phase, and you don't understand there are layers to this. There are layers to bonding with somebody. You get past the infatuation stage, and you kind of start progressing through a longer term relationship. A lot of times, what happens is you done overshared with somebody that you barely know. You trauma dumped on them. You don't know them. You don't have enough trust in them. You shouldn't, like, you were trying to build a bond or reinforce a bond that really wasn't mature enough and you hadn't had enough time with this person to realize this is not the right person to disclose this to. And they use it against you. They use it as leverage. They use it in an argument. Sometimes you don't see that person has that level of emotional immaturity where, they weren't really ready to be somebody's confidant. And so you can't lead with that. But at the same time, I think a lot of times when I see people complaining about that, especially young men, I see people complaining. I was like, well, you overshared to somebody that you shouldn't have overshared to yet, because you felt an intense connection with them. And instead of just saying, hold on, I'm having this really intense feelings about this. I need to get my head straight. You try to further intensify the connection by disclosing a lot of stuff that was kind of too early to disclose because you don't necessarily know who this person is. And then they weaponize it against you. And I'm not saying you deserved it. They could have been a terrible person. You just you didn't know them enough to know that they weren't the kind of person to disclose this to. It's a hard thing, guys. Like, there is no clean answer for this stuff. Human relationships are messy. That's how it is. They're messy and irrational. And no matter how much logic and order you try to bring to it, there's always going to be a layer of there's always going to be a layer of chaos that sits in it. And that's just how human beings interact with anything. Throughout the course of a day, we experience millions and millions and millions of micro events that don't even register, and cumulatively they impact our mood, impact the way we perceive things, impact the way we hear things, because sometimes you can only hear the things that you're listening for, and you will ignore things that are said to you, or a tone, like you'll pick up on a tone that's not there. So any number of things can impact the way that you perceive the way that somebody's interacting with you throughout the course of a day. And that's why relationships are work. It's a lot about communication. My thing about it is, the emotionally unavailable piece means you guys have reached an understanding where you've reached a level of comfort to disclose. And now, instead of saying, I'm not comfortable, like, I can disclose this, but I'm not comfortable talking about this, you say, well, my standards are, my standards are this, and you're using standards as a shield. I hope this makes sense. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and move on. How do I feel? How do I deal with feeling like I disappointed my younger self? All right. So my younger self, and this is pre-internet, so I need y'all to understand what I'm saying when I say this. Pre-internet. My aspirational goal, what I wanted to be, was I wanted to be Russell Simmons, not the dangerous sex criminal that is on the run in Bali. Not that. I didn't know that dude existed. Okay. And so, but that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be the businessman. I wanted to have my own record label. I wanted to allow artists to have complete creative control. Like, that's what I wanted. That's the life I envisioned for myself. And I wanted to have all that by 35. By the time I was 35, by the time I hit 35, I had reached the peak of my career working in human services, working with kids and families. And I was a director of my own program. And I'm sitting there looking at them like, yeah, my younger self might have been disappointed with this, because I would have thought, instead of running my own residential youth program, I thought I was going to be Russell Simmons and have a hip hop label and stuff like that. So sometimes your younger self has goals and aspirations for you that aren't realistic just because they don't have any lived experience. Sometimes your younger self will just be impressed with the fact that you have your own car or your own apartment. or a girlfriend or boyfriend. Like, they will be mind blown by that. Okay. So I think it's kind of understanding, you got to put it in a box. How rational, like if you met your younger self, how rational are they? How, how how grounded are they if you met them? Okay. Like I said, my 14-year-old self wanted my 35-year-old self to be a music mogul with my own record label. So I mean, come on, it is what it is. But yeah, I wanted to, like I said, man, I wanted to be Russell Simmons. I didn't know that like I said, it wasn't the sex pest Russell Simmons that we know right now. Um, yeah, we don't like that guy. Fuck that guy. But like I said, but this is before we knew how terrible of a person he was. And that's what I wanted to be. So I think we have to understand that sometimes the imagine the like, because here's the thing. I had some terrible, like, I'm sitting there looking at the people I looked up to and some of the shit that came out about them as I got older. Like, I was a huge Bill Cosby fan when I was little. We had the Cosby Show. I had a lot of his records. Like, I used to listen to comedy albums. Like, I would buy people's comedy albums and listen to it. I would sneak and listen to my mom's Richard Pryor albums when I was little and put them on my record player. I loved listening to comedy albums. And so one of the things I thought I was going to be was a stand-up comedian when I got older, when I was really little. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna be a stand-up comedian and a scientist. Okay. Well, then I'm gonna be a stand-up comedian, a scientist, and a music mogul. Like, I had all these aspirational things that I wanted to be when I was younger. And as I got older, it started narrowing down. And like I said, I wanted to be Russell Simmons. I'm sorry, I didn't know that he was a degenerate. I'm sorry, I didn't know that back in the 90s. He was everything when I was a kid. He was on Def Comedy Jam. He had his own clothing line. He was the dude that a lot of my favorite rappers were signed to. And so that's who I wanted to be. And so when I'm looking at who my 14 or 15-year-old self wanted to be versus where I'm at now, I'm a business owner, and my 14 or 15-year-old self would have been impressed with it. I didn't know at 14 or 15-year-old how difficult business entrepreneurship is, especially as a Black person in a city that's not necessarily aligned with successful Black people. I'm being dead honest. I live in a city where most of my most successful classmates have left this place. There was a huge Black brain drain in Omaha in the 90s. They got out of here and haven't really looked back. They show up at Omaha days and that's about it. There's a reason for that. And they're having success in other cities. I talked to the friends that remain. We'd say we would have been six-figure people if we would have gone to another city, a larger, more a city that's friendlier to Black folks. I got cousins that will not come back here. Like, they don't. You grew up here, like, yeah, it's nice to visit every once in a while. I don't want to. This is not a place I want to be. And so when I look at what the expectations my 15-year-old self had for my life, a lot of it was filtered through the lens of what a 15-year-old wanted. So yeah, I mean, sometimes you got to let go of the fact that your younger self didn't quite know all the dynamics of what went into things. That's fine. How do I feel? I mean, like I said, my younger self wanted to be Russell Simmons, and this is before we knew who he was. This was 90s era. So why do Black dads act like showing emotion is dangerous? Okay. A lot of historically, and this isn't, I can be disputed on this. I don't really care. This is just my framework of how I understand our history. A lot of Black parenting is linked to, it's descended from the idea that our kids are constantly in jeopardy of being harmed. And the world has kind of proved that to be true. But for generations and generations and generations, as a Black person, showing emotions outside of stoicism, sometimes anger, sometimes lust, um, showing it was dangerous. It was actually dangerous. You know, a kid that couldn't regulate, a black child that couldn't regulate his emotions in the 30s was in extraordinary danger. Neurodivergent black kids were in extraordinary danger in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s if they did not have the ability to regulate their emotions. And so a lot of black dads, for them, the role model they grew up with was very stoic. And I grew up under that. I actually grew up under that with a male figure that was super, super stoic, even to this day, never really showed any emotions. It wasn't like it was completely emotionally dysregulated, but he grew up, you just keep your head up and keep on the grind, and you just do what you're supposed to do, and that's it. But yeah, for a lot, for multiple generations, having a kid that showing emotions as a black person in public around white people was dangerous. It gets you killed. It could absolutely get you killed. Get you killed, could get you institutionalized, get you put in jail. Any number of bad things could happen if you are emotionally acting out as a black person. And so a lot of people had that installed in their brains as they grew up. And sometimes as a parent, you can only utilize the tools that you're aware of. And so if you've never taken that time as a black father to explore your emotions and how you project your emotions into the world, and how you regulate your emotions, you may not be equipped. You may not have the tools to deal with an emotional child. I, s- you know, I could tell you, any number of times where me and my kids have bumped heads just because of our temperaments, because they're like me, they're like their mom, um, and we bump heads a lot because of that. But there is a level of danger to, like, specifically, and I'm talking about neurodivergent black kids. And if you don't know what neurodivergent is, please just Google it. You are watching me on a computer, open up a browser tab, look up what neurodivergence means, because I'm not going to explain it to you here. But for a lot of neurodivergent black kids, you are in an enhanced set of danger. You're in danger at school. Um, you can get kicked out of school for an emotional outburst. I Here's the thing: like, I've been written up at a job because I didn't smile enough as a black person. Like, written up at a job because I didn't smile enough. Then people knew, like, that supervisor knew full well that my mom was going through having health issues. Um, I literally just bumped heads about having some of the credit a project that I put blood, sweat, and tears on literally be stolen from me and attributed to somebody who didn't have anything to do with it. Like, I had every reason to not be in a good mood, and I got written up because I didn't smile enough. I've been lectured to at another job I had, where I was coming I came into work. I'll never forget, I came into work after finding out that a friend I grew up with since I was like 3 or 4 years old, and I found out I was kind of related to them, that they had just been murdered by the police. And I went into work that day and I told them exactly what happened. And the dismissal was, well, I'm just glad his dad didn't blame the cops. Hey, stiff upper lip, man. That's kind of what I got. It wasn't any level of empathy. Hey, man, you got some PT. Why don't you use it? Like, take some time off. Um, I had aunt who was sick. They, for whatever reason, didn't believe me about my aunt being sick. I took some time off around that. I never had the opportunity to be sad or show any other emotion in that job besides smiling black person. And if I went anywhere off of that track, I was going to get written feedback for it. So a lot of times for black folks, our emotions are considered to be dangerous. That's why. An emotionally dysregulated black young black male can get shot and killed by the cops really easily and misunderstood. So a young, emotionally dysregulated young black girl can have any number of horrible things, and even get shot herself, have horrible outcomes because we're not black folks. For us, our emotions are considered dangerous for a lot of people. When we're mad, they feel like we are an absolute threat to them, or an enhanced threat to them. So that it's a long-winded way of saying it has a lot to do with how we are socialized, how we're raised. And yeah, for a lot of older black men, showing emotions was a dangerous gambit. Okay. All right, so that was Ask a Dad. Like I said, I'm open to take any real questions you guys got, but that's just how my mind works on it. I've had a long day, and so I apologize if it was rambly or it didn't give you the answer that you were looking for. But that's the segment. I do want to be able to provide some level of service to the people that tune in. Okay. Segment 2, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here because I need to do a little bit. I'm realizing that I need to do a little bit more research on this. I need to actually pull some directors' names and stuff like that. This is probably going to be a long form essay, like more of a video essay. But I do need to ask a question. I fell down the rabbit hole of watching specifically young black reactors on YouTube react to movies like Vampire in Brooklyn, Strictly Business, but the one that's most recent is Boomerang. There's an entire era of black films that we will not see. It doesn't feel like we're going to see anymore. Boomerang stands out in my mind because what we had was upwardly mobile, super successful, super competent, super attractive black people working as marketing executives in New York City. And people think I'm joking when I say this. For a lot of dudes my age, Marcus Graham for Boomerang was our American dream. He was the material representation of what making it as a black man in America looked like for my generation. And I know, a lot of my friends that, the anti-capitalists and stuff like that are going to be mad about that. But you guys got to understand, we didn't have this level of nuance in our media analysis that is available now, where we can deconstruct every single opinion that we have and compare it against, we can go read a book and compare it against written stuff. We didn't have that level of media analysis available. Okay. For a lot of dudes my age, a lot of black dudes my age, Marcus Graham was the epitome of making it as a black man in America in Boomerang. He had beautiful women. He had the penthouse apartment. He had a job. He was in charge of stuff. He was in control of his own destiny. He had his home. He had his boys that he could hang out with. He had that shit on. Like he had that shit on. Like he was dressed to the nines all the time. And so, and I know Eddie, behind the scenes, Eddie Murphy fought tooth and nail. Like I don't remember seeing. There weren't any white people in the main cast of that movie. White folks were relegated to the roles that black people had been relegated to in a lot of those white rom-coms, where we're literally just a supporting character who just pops in, and we're just and they're just a punchline. He put white folks in that, and I remember a lot of critics did not like that movie for any number of reasons, but it had something to do with that. Like it had something to do with that. I'm thinking about movies like House Party. I think these are both Reginald Hudlin movies. Boomerang and House Party. I believe they're both Reginald Hudlin movies. But even stuff like that weren't necessarily from a black director, like I think Surviving the Game with Ice-T, where you have a black male who is the lead action person in the movie. I feels like there's an entire era of movies that will not get made again because everything is, and I'm not even complaining about it. I love superhero movies. Everything is big budget, blockbuster. Okay, I get it. But I'm even thinking like stuff like Brown Sugar and things like that that were in the 2000s stuff. I feel like it. Y'all can hate me in this. I feel like Tyler Perry, the Tyler Perry being Tyler Perry having the success that he did, it on one hand, yeah, okay, black creatives out there doing things, but I feel like it did upend a lot of the movie industry for black films, where everything had to be in the Tyler Perry formula. I feel like there are a lot of movies that were black led that were getting on, they weren't blockbusters, they weren't expected to be blockbusters, they were niche films for a black audience that could be shown in theaters, they could be profitable, and then they could go and sell on the VHS market. And they were for us. Think of Harlem Nights. A lot of these had Eddie in them. Harlem Nights, Coming to America. And sometimes I don't think y'all understand how big of a movie star Eddie actually was. It's just like people don't understand how big of a star Michael Jackson was in the 80s. Eddie Murphy was that guy. He was the golden boy. It wasn't even like, it was Kevin Hart, where Kevin Hart just became ubiquitous to the point where it became a meme in and of himself. Eddie was the leading man for a lot of the 80s. He was the most requested actor. And a lot of people sat around and waited for kind of his downfall, to be honest with you. But I remember he's banging out. We had Vampire in Brooklyn, Nutty Professor. I mean, he was the guy. And so I feel like we're missing an era of movies that could really be amazing. And I know Tubi may be an outlet. And I know Tubi right now is shorthand for bad, low quality black movies. But I almost feel like there could be a lane for witty, intelligent, black rom-coms, competent black action movies, competent dramas. I feel like there's a lane for that on Tubi. I don't know. It just feels like that we're never going to get that era back where you could actually go and see it in theaters. Like we could go see Boomerang in theaters. I fixate on Boomerang because it gave me a goal, an aspiration. And it also played into, I want to be Russell Simmons. I want to be a Marcus Graham. I want to be the guy with the penthouse apartment, high rise, who has the creative job, that his job is to just create stuff. And I got a glimpse into young black adulthood that wasn't weighed down. Like it wasn't weighed down with the heaviness of some of the John Singleton movies and stuff, of the coming of age stuff. I got to see successful black people, but then I could also go see black people in the struggle, and I could go see black people in horror movies and black led horror movies, and it felt competent. That's something that seems to be missing now, and I don't know where to get it back, y'all. But like I said, I feel like this is going to be a longer piece. Okay. And I do, to a degree, blame the success of Tyler Perry because it kind of killed, it made this weird template where everything has to be this weirdly over dramatic. Like me and my wife almost got just about kicked out of a Tyler Perry play, just because the emotional climax was fucking hilarious. Like it was one of the funniest things that I have seen as an adult in my life. And we were in tears laughing so hard at the scene that had other people next to us crying and stuff. We're laughing so hard because it was so over the top and so overblown. And that ends up becoming what Tyler Perry movies are. It's becoming a cliche or a meme in and of itself. I love the fact he put on a lot of black folks, but at the same time, I think he ended up becoming this template for the industry, and then it becoming a gatekeeper in a sense, where everything had to filter through him if it's a black movie. Okay. And Hollywood did abandon the mid-budget movies for billion-dollar franchises. And so that's all we see, we lost a lot of gatekeepers or whatnot. Keenan Ivory Wayne's Low Down Dirty Shame, bro. Like that was a good action movie. It was a good action comedy. We're never going to see anything like that again. And it's kind of depressing. Now, I feel like a lot of kids are missing out. That's why I love seeing the reactor channels go back and react to this stuff, because they get a chance to experience, hey, Like these things exist. And it's a good movie. You can sit down, entertain it, you can have some popcorn and enjoy it. Okay. I'm gonna do a longer piece about it. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of touch base on it. All right. It's time for comic book stuff, y'all. Yeah. It gets your blood pumping, right? We're gonna talk about comic books, right? Like it's that time. It's that time. All right. So um riding in the car, and this is typically when I'm driving, I typically have a lot of my thoughts that end up becoming fodder for this show. And so I'll talk it into my notes app and then generate an outline off of my voice notes and whatnot. And then I sit down and edit the outline. And that's how I kind of come up with it. I happened to stumble across a video where somebody is explaining Xorn from Grant Morrison's X-Men. And it pissed me off. And it brought back a lot of bad memories about that specific era of X-Men for me, that 2000-ish era. Because the model of Xorn looks amazing. It's a dope look. He's a dope looking character. Okay. Here's the thing. When Grant Morrison gets his hands on a thing, either it's going to be amazing or it's going to be confusing. And there's not a lot of room in between. And Xorn was one of those characters that was confusing as hell. And it brings up a pet peeve of mine regarding regarding comic books in general. It's a pet peeve of mine. I have a bias against characters that have vaguely defined powers. I don't like it. I don't like characters that have vaguely defined powers. We spend all this time establishing the concept of a superhero, but we can't explain what their powers are. I don't like superheroes where their powers are, well, it's pretty much whatever the writer needs to get themselves out of the out of the pit that they dug themselves into. Okay. I'm not against complex powers. I'm not against nuanced powers. I'm against really vaguely defined powers. Xorn is the poster child for this to me. There's a couple others, but Xorn typifies this for me. He's the archetyped. Oh my God. He's the archetype of this. Okay? In my mind, he is the perfect distillation of this vaguely undefined power. So let me run this down. Okay. Xorn was from Grant Morrison's new X-Men. Okay. And he has a star for a brain or a face or whatever. And in the short time that he was on it, they retconned, bro, like 7 different times. Like, I don't know what he was Magneto. Then he wasn't Magneto. Then he was Magneto. He's not Magneto. Then he's his own person. Now he has a twin brother. So let me run down his powers. Xorn has a power to heal. He can manipulate gravity, matter manipulation. Gravity manipulation makes sense. Gravity, star, blah, whatever. Okay. I'll deal with matter manipulation. Dude got a star for a nugget. Okay. Healing. I don't know what healing comes from. Stellar energy projection. Okay. Star for face makes sense. Black hole creation. Again, that makes sense. Psionic resistance. Okay. Energy absorption. Magnetic fields. Electromagnetic manipulation. Reality distortion. Death energy. Healing aura. Supernova level explosion. Low level cosmic awareness. There's a raft of other powers that this dude had. And it felt like it got to the point where they're like, okay, so what does the story need? And again, there's 2 Xorns. So there's another one. So one had a sun in his head and the other one had a black hole in his head. And it's Kuan Yin and Shin Xorn. I'm looking at the wiki right now. Kuan Yin, Sun in the head. He had healing powers, electricity, magnetism, generation manipulation, teleportation via time space wormholes, gravity manipulation, telepathy, subsubstance, can cause his sun to turn into a black hole. Xorn, black hole in the head, healing powers. Why does he have healing powers? What about a star heals you? Teleportation through wormholes, gravity manipulation. It felt like he was this character he was literally anything. He could just do anything, whatever the plot demanded. And then the entire, well, he's Magneto. He's secretly Magneto. There's no internal rules. There's no limits. There's no logic. There's no consistent interpolation of this guy. He's just, ugh. You even see it. They don't even know what to do with him in the current X books. What can he do? Why don't you send him in every single mission? This dude obviously could do everything. He has whatever powers he needs. And there's no real explanation for it. Like, okay, if we say Mr. Sinister, we say Apocalypse. Apocalypse can alter his, he has molecular control, so he can basically grant himself powers. I'll accept that, I guess. Mr. Sinister, genetic manipulation, he can graft powers onto himself. I'll accept that because there's an explanation for it. Xorn popped up out of nowhere and was Magneto, but then he wasn't Magneto. If you guys can't tell, I don't like this character. This is 100% biased, y'all. So if you want to come for me, that's fine. I don't like this dude. I don't like this character. I feel like there's a point where the writing jumps the shark and we end up kind of tricking ourselves. Because they keep retconning him. Like I said, the entire he was Magneto arc, it felt completely, it was this weird twist. And then we say, well, he was just Magneto was just impersonating Xorn. Then he killed Xorn. I don't understand this, man. And so you don't know who Xorn was. It's so confusing. It's one of those things where it's almost like Marvel's version of Hawkman, where the retcons, you have this awesome looking character design, but you can't quite figure out what story to tell with it. Hawkman's another one. Hawkman, and his powers aren't like as extreme as Xorn's, but Hawkman's another one, y'all. Hawkman's power set is confusing. Resurrection, immortality. Okay, I get that fits into the story. How strong is Hawkman, y'all? Type in the comments. Who is Hawkman comparable to? Street level, low level superhuman. Who's he comparable to? What are his powers? What does Hawkman do? I've seen Hawkman do so many different things in different comic books where I start to question my knowledge of comic books. And if you ever tried to go down the rabbit hole looking up Hawkman, good luck. Because there's so many different iterations and versions of it. There's Carter Hall with the K. Hawkman's been so many different people. I'm on his wiki right now. I'm gonna see. I'm going to see what his powers and abilities are. So right now in the Prime DC universe, he was a priest in his past life, and he has the ability to bless mundane objects. He was able to convert water into holy water to kill a vampire. He was granted the ability to breathe underwater by Poseidon. And Nth Metal did something with started the cycle of reincarnation. I'm reading this and for all these years, I thought Hawkman was just slightly above superhuman strength level and he could fly. But now in the comics, he has a blessing where he can make holy water. He has a divine empowerment where he can breathe underwater. Why? Because the plot needed it. That's what it is. And the reincarnation's always been consistent. I'll say that. But his abilities is expert combatant, weaponry, reincarnated knowledge, science, tactical leadership, and blah, 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 blah. And he has a curse on him. Hawkman is one of the most confusing and confounding characters in all of comic books. And for whatever reason, DC has been trying to unfuck Hawkman's they've been trying to unfuck his entire story for decades. Every time they reboot the universe, they try again with Hawkman and fall right on their face because there is no coherent story with him. We don't know what his powers are consistently. We don't know where he ranks in terms of other superheroes. We're going to talk about that later. He just is displayed inconsistency. He's all over the place. He is like Xorn, where we bring him out he turned water into holy water to kill a vampire. What are we doing, bro? There's one more. Seriously, I don't pay enough attention to the Eternals to have an opinion about Seriously, but she just kind of crossed my feed. Official powers are transmutation, and practice is illusion, shape-shifting, energy projection, mental control, teleportation. The boundaries really shift on the writers, but that is more or less an Eternals thing, where they all have baseline powers. It's just what they focus on the most, which kind of makes sense, kind of doesn't. The logic is broken on these. And I have a strong aversion to characters with. I don't even mind like a Martian Manhunter where they got multiple powers. I don't mind that. It's where it's just plot armor and it's confusing and it's inconsistent. That's where I have a problem with it. So moving on, let's talk Marvel's power grid system. One of the things that got me into, because I've been reading comics since I was 5 years old, right? But one of my fascinations was the Marvel comic cards, like sharing the comic trading cards. Like I think they dropped in like 91. That was amazing because now I actually have Marvel, like it tells what everybody's power is, tells what their abilities are, and then has a ranking system to tell you where they fit along the ranking system. How strong are they? There's no guesswork. Now, they've broken the ranking system plenty of times because I think the strength system used to be on the scale of class 10, class 50, class 100. And then you have Hulk, who is over class 100, because for a long time, I guess in the Marvel universe, the heaviest shit in the world was 100 tons. Like that's like if you could lift 100 tons, that's the heaviest thing that's ever existed on the planet. But now there are excavators that are 100 tons. And so you had to scale Hulk past that, where Hulk is breaking through planets and holding tectonic plates together. And so class 100 doesn't necessarily prove that. And then you have class 85 heroes like Ben Grimm, who does class 100 feats all the time. So it's not a perfect system, but at least it was a system. There was something. There was something there. There was an attempt. An attempt was made. And for me, the nerdy little autistic coded ADHD brain kid, I love this stuff. I memorized a lot of these cards. Okay. And so I memorized, people's stats and stuff like that. And so I could get into the weeds of it. One of the things that did for conversations about comic book characters, it gave us a reference point. It gave us a place to actually start to have a conversation about, okay, how would this character fare against this character? And then you can go in the books and you can see the eternal logic working out. Okay, Spider-Man has to pull his punches, otherwise he'd kill people. Okay, I've actually seen that in the comic book. I've seen the time where somebody punches Spider-Man and he doesn't roll the punch and they end up breaking their wrist. That makes sense. It aligns with what's on his with his durability and strength. Okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a quick overview of Marvel's power grid system. And it's changed throughout the years, because I know on the Marvel cards, it used to be just 1 through 7 um, and stuff like that. But they've changed it around to kind of scale up and power scale for the current characters. Okay. So there's 7 categories, or 6 categories: intelligence, strength, speed, durability, energy projection, and fighting ability. Okay. Intelligence. If we're talking intelligence, below average intelligence is going to be like Toad. I feel like they're doing my boy Toad a disservice, bro. I feel like they're doing him crazy, and I need to double check that. But below average intelligence, right? And so I feel like Toad kind of gets a raw deal. But that's what they have him scaled at, is below average intelligence. Like, no, man, that's not right. Because they have him up where he's more intelligent, where he's above average intelligence. Yeah, man, they did my boy Toad greasy, bro. I don't like that. Justice for Toad, bro. Justice for Toad. Um, I don't like how they did him, bro. That makes me mad. Like, I'm not happy about this, bro. I tried to, y'all doing my boy Toad filthy, bro. All right. But it's lower, it's below level intelligence. For a long time, I think it was Crusher Creel kind of fell in there. Rhino fell in there. You know, guys that just didn't have all there. Okay. Um, the next one is, let me go ahead and pull up my notes here. Yeah, that Toad thing is wrong. I'm pulling that out there. Average intelligence is going to be like a regular average person, like your average normal. Above average intelligence. Then you go into the gifted category. That's when we start talking Spider-Man and stuff. And we start talking Beast. And I feel like Spider-Man gets a raw deal, because Spider-Man, his intelligence, a lot of the fact that where he's categorized, where he's ranked, is just because he didn't have access to the higher levels of education, because Mr. Fantastic respects his intelligence. That's saying something. He's considered the smartest man on the planet. Between him and Doctor Doom, he thinks that Spider-Man is more brilliant than people perceive him to be. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that this is kind of a social commentary. He didn't have access to a lot of the stuff, amenities that like a Tony Stark or Reed Richards had. But genius, you got Beast, Hank McCoy, super genius, philanthropist, billionaire, playboy, Tony Stark. I mean, and Reed Richards falls in there. And then you have cosmic intellect, where they know everything. And that's more like the Watcher. A lot of these cosmic abstract beings are going to have that cosmic awareness, where they have a cosmic intelligence, where they know things that are outside or too grand for a regular human to grasp. Strength level. You got number 1 is weak, which is Aunt May, depending on who's writing. 2 is human, is Daredevil. Human is really interesting in Marvel, because Daredevil, I've seen this dude throw is like a 400-pound barbell. A barbell is loaded with 400 pounds of stuff. That is superhuman strength. I lift weights. That is superhuman strength. Hey, babe. Yeah, they got Daredevil classified as a human. And I'm gonna go too. I'm gonna pull up his thing. I'm gonna pull up his stats, because I need to double check it. Daredevil's thrown. I've seen Daredevil throw. Like, there's a comic book where he like threw a barbell that was loaded with like 400 pounds. That is absolutely superhuman strength. You're not walking into the gym and meeting dudes that can grab a 400-pound barbell and throw it at somebody. I warm up, like when I'm doing my deadlift, my warm up on the deadlift is 405. And then it goes up from there. I couldn't throw that if I wanted to. There's no way. And so when Marvel says human, I think human, if I remember the old cards correctly, human goes, double one's own body weight, all the way up to 800 pounds, if I'm not mistaken. And the way they classified it was ability to press over one's head. Okay. So yeah, they got him. They got strength as peak human. Yeah, this is inconsistent. And I know I'm dealing with the wiki, and the Marvel wiki is going to be a fan edited thing. They got Valeria Richards as a peak human strength, able to lift twice one's own body weight. That is really subjective because depending on how much you weigh, that's either kind of impressive or not very impressive at all. They got Captain America here under a peak human. Okay, I Captain America is low level superhuman, bro. Like he presses 800 pounds, and so that's low level superhuman. When I'm talking about a strict press over your head, that's a very very heavy weight. Being able to press 800 pounds is superhuman strength. I don't care who you're talking about, even in real life. But we're talking comic books, okay? And I am far afield, so I'm not gonna give you these. I'm not gonna even go through and do these. You know. So we got Peak Human, which is Captain America. Um, and I think they've changed some of these. Like from the comic cards, I almost feel like they changed some of this. Spider-Man is in the 10-ton range. Colossus is in the 75-ton range, even though I think Colossus is graduated up. Thor is in the 75 to 100-ton range. Yeah. And Hulk is incalculable. I have Thor as incalculable too, just based on feats. And I do, if I'm confusing you, I have my own rubric worked out here. And so I'm comparing multiple wikis and multiple places where they have this information. Plus, I went through my old Marvel cards too. Speed. So speed goes through slow to light speed, essentially. Yeah, and so that's going to be light speed plus is almost going to be like teleporters. Okay. And so we got slow, normal human, peak human, enhanced, superhuman, sublight, and light speed. Durability um, goes from durability goes from 1 to 7 as well. And so I think I'm gonna start pulling these directly off the wiki because my notes are all over the place on this one. Okay. So durability is presented in the official Marvel handbook. So I'm going to go with the Marvel handbook's definition of this. Okay. And so one on the Marvel handbook is durability is weak. 2 is normal durability. So 1 is going to be like a frail person or maybe even a child. I would say Aunt May would fall under weak. Maybe somebody's medically compromised or if they have some kind of condition or something. Normal durability is your regular human being durability. Yeah. So wait a minute. Got 1 week. All right. Then we got enhanced durability, which is 3. This is going to be, and I need to get the definition. Able to recover and resist, able to resist and recover from bodily injury. Okay. Yeah, the wiki is all over. There's no damn way that Wolverine is a 3. 4 is regenerative. I almost have Wolverine under either regenerative or bulletproof. But regenerative, it sounds like what it is. You're able to regenerate from injuries that would be fatal for regular people. Your healing capacity is a lot higher. Bulletproof is what it sounds like, where bullets cannot penetrate you. Superhuman is you can resist pretty much just about anything. And then 7 is going to be indestructible or virtually indestructible. Okay. So I apologize if I confused y'all. I'm going to go based on what the Marvel handbook says, because some of these other sites are all over the place with how they do their ratings. All right. Let's see where we're at here. Let's do energy projection. This has always been an interesting one to me. Um, just because a lot of superheroes have it is based on energy projection. That's what their power set is projecting different types of energy. And so when we go to energy projection, one is going to be they're like your regular person, like a regular human being. Like, I don't emit energy. I can't shoot anything out of my fingertips or eyeballs. Okay. Um, two is going to be like on contact energy. Like, they could only connect, like Gambit. I don't know if Gambit falls under that though, man. I have a question about Gambit because his powers at the low end, he has to have physical contact with the things that he charges with kinetic energy. But at the higher end, he can do that without. Yeah, they got him at it too. Uh, he has to be in physical contact with it. So I'm guessing that's what they got Gambit at. It feels like Gambit's ceiling should be a little bit higher on that. Hey, what I know. Um, three is going to be more short range energy bursts, where it's kind of around in their immediate area, um, where they can blast people in their immediate area. I'm thinking like more like Iron Fist in that range. Um, but Iron Fist has done more. Um, four is medium range. Okay, so it's going to be a little bit further out than your regular area, whatnot. Let me check something here because Valeria keep popping up on stuff, and yeah, they're bringing in Valeria Richards in. They're bringing in her Marvel girl status, and she don't have all that stuff right now. She just has super intelligence. Tripping. See, I thought it was me. I thought it was tripping on how, because I keep seeing Valeria Richards pop up on stuff where I know she that's not normally what she's walking around with. All right, so four is medium range. Five is going to be more long range. And see, they done changed it because it used to be how many different types of energy. Okay, so five is a single energy type. Like, you have a mastery of a single energy type. I think Sue Storm kind of falls under this because it's more psionic force fields. I know specifically Human Torch does because of fire. Okay. I think Magneto might not fall under there because he has different types of electromagnetic, but it does fall. But he's done electricity too. So, um, six is going to be able to discharge energy, and they have multiple types of energy types they're in control of. Okay, so this is where we're talking about Thor, Doom when he's cooking, he can fire all kinds of multiple types of energy out. And then seven, just mastery of every type of energy that's available. We're getting into Galactus, we're getting to the Phoenix Force, we're getting into Franklin Richards. Even the Silver Surfer, I believe, falls under that banner. Rachel Summers, who they've been doing filthy, but basically their output, they have unlimited command of pretty much all types of energy. So I'm not going to read you every single one of these guys. You don't need to know all that. What I'm going to say is this. Let's do fighting ability because this does segue into my next one. With fighting ability, this is where it gets interesting because a lot of times I'm in a lot of groups where I've been in groups where we compare superheroes from one to another. Oh, I got a comment. Cool. Nope, that's spam. A lot of times I'm in groups where we have these kind of conversations about who could whoop who and all this other stuff. So I am going to do fighting ability because I do feel like fighting skills do fall into some of the matchups we have. Okay. And so fighting skills are going to go from poor. Okay. This means you can't throw them things at all. To normal fighting skills where you have basic command of your ability to throw a punch, I guess. So proficiency in hand-to-hand combat is where it's poor. I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. They can't fight. They don't know how to squabble. They don't know how to squabble. Normal fighting skills are just going to be your basic untrained human being, or maybe a person with a little bit of training where they know how to throw a punch. They know how to at least defend themselves. 3 is going to be some training, like you've been trained. A lot of people in the Avengers have been trained by Captain America in basic self-defense. And so that's where you're going to find that. For some reason on the wiki, they got Apocalypse, and Apocalypse doesn't seem like he fits in here. We're talking about a warrior that's thousands of years old. Apocalypse can fight. I'm sorry. I just don't believe that one. Experienced fighter. So this is number 4. This is somebody that has a lot of experience and has training. Okay. And there's a difference to be trained, and there's a difference between having experience as it. There's a reason why if we watch Avengers, is it Endgame? I think it had to be Endgame. Or no, it's Infinity War. Avengers Infinity War. Hulk got his ass whooped. And there's a reason why Hulk got his ass whooped, because Hulk isn't like he uses it in the movie. He always uses overwhelming strength. And that was his advantage, but he couldn't necessarily fight. He wasn't necessarily a trained or tactical fighter. That's the reason why in the comic books, Ben Grimm can trade blows with the Hulk, because Ben Grimm is a pretty gifted fighter. He's an experienced fighter. He's a well-trained fighter. And so it allows him to punch above his weight class, because he actually knows combat. He knows different forms of combat. He knows judo, he knows boxing, he knows wrestling, jujitsu, and stuff like that. And so he can apply it as somebody that's that can lift anywhere between 85 and 100 tons, and it allows him to punch above his weight class. So the Hulk, that's one of his that's kind of a limitation on him. As strong as he is, if he meets somebody that has kind of similar strength or even a little bit below it, he could struggle with fighting them until he gets pissed off enough to where his strength overwhelms their technical ability. The one that people underestimate is Cyclops. Cyclops will whoop your ass. Cyclops is a really gifted fighter. So this is having experience. So number 4 is experience, having experience and training. 5, this is going to be a master of a single form of combat. This is where you're going to find your Ben Grimms, where he's a very, very skilled boxer and wrestler. I think he even has 2 of them, but they got Black Panther. Kingpin will beat your ass. Bullseye, Daredevil. This is what you're going to find. Kitty Pryde. Kitty Pryde used to catch bodies, bro. I don't think people understand. Kitty Pryde used to catch bodies. Number 6. This is where we're going to get to Captain America. Master of several forms of combat. Now, it used to be, and if I remember it incorrectly, you guys can tell me. It used to be that like Captain America was at number 7, where he was virtually all forms of combat. But it feels like they added, and they've either readjusted and power scaled it, because Captain America used to be at the top tier of combatants in the Marvel universe, and now he's a tier below the top. But this is going to be this is going to be masters of several forms of combat. Nah. I guess I'll allow it. 7, master of all forms of combat. Now, I understand Taskmaster being on this list. I have yet to see a Hawkeye feat that puts him at that level, like where I'm like, all right. And Wolverine, I don't think that he is all forms of combat. I've always seen him and Captain America as peers when it came to that kind of stuff, but I could be wrong. Hope Summers. Like, I get it. I understand she was raised by Cable's about that life. To have her as a 7, these are her potential, like what she can draw. So there's another layer to the Marvel thing, is sometimes characters will be able to enhance their power set. And so, like, you may see a person who has a teleportation where they have a 7 on speed because they can instantaneously transmit from one place to another. Because also they got David Haller on there. They got Legion. And Legion, one of his personalities, if they're he can adopt a personality that is a master combatant. Okay. But like Bucky Barnes, like we got Bucky Barnes, he can fight better than Captain America. Okay. Um, Clinton Barton, I just mentioned Hawkeye. I don't have him as a 7, bro. I don't think Clint Barton is a superior combatant to Captain America unless I'm tripping. Like I don't see him as a better combatant than Captain America. I'm sorry. He was trained in various forms of martial arts by Captain America. So he is trained by Captain America, but he's better. I don't buy this, bro. Oh, calling shenanigans on this. But this is okay. So get it. I know I may have lost people because I did not intend to spend this long on this. Here's what I'm gonna say, y'all. The reason why I feel like Marvel comics for a long time are a little bit more accessible to a nerd that's coming into comic books is because of this power grid. You're able to compare characters, and there was a level of consistency in the storytelling. Okay, Hulk stronger than the Thing. Why is Hulk stronger than the Thing? Well, here's the power grid that shows where they go. Thing has the capacity to get stronger. Thing, you know, if everything's on the line, he can overclock his strength. And then another explanation is Hulk is just physically bigger. He's physically bigger than the Thing. But there's a level of comparison there. And so I like that a little bit more. And I feel like the problem with it is it helped the fandom. It helped people get on board in the 90s as fans because you actually had a way to talk about characters. It gave us a baseline. The base had structure. We had the same language. We could say, you know, back in the days, you say, well, you know, such and such is class 5, but it's class 5 string, but this is class 25 and blah, blah, blah. And you actually had that ability. You could scale characters up. You could say, well, Luke Cage was at this level, but now he's had multiple treatments. And so now he's at this level. And now my ADHD is taken over and I need to look up what Luke Cage is. Because I believe he is at 5. I think he's like class 20 now. Might be class. No, I don't think he's class 50 yet. I know they buffed him. I know that he's been buffed. So let's see. Luke Cage. He started out at 5 tons and he went up to 25 tons. Okay. But he's gone above and beyond that. Like he's done stuff that's above that. Anyway, there was a baseline to have this conversation. Like when I was younger, we had the power. Marvel had the power grids. You could actually have a baseline conversation about where a character ranked compared to another character. The problem is when it came to DC, there was no real ranking system, and so it was a little bit harder to be able to speak the same language because DC, and I think it had something to do with how they mythologized the characters. They wanted their characters to be kind of mythic figures, and so they didn't necessarily want to put ranks on them, but they did. And that's the thing. There is a hierarchy on DC side. It's just not really, it's told, but it's not never really written down. Okay. And so you can't really scale DC characters, but you can. I'm gonna give a Superman as my example. This is the example I have. With Superman, it's generally understood that he is the strongest. Like generally understood. Sometimes Darkseid's stronger because he's a god. But there are times I've seen Superman dog walk Darkseid. But then you got Superboy Prime. How much stronger is Superboy Prime than regular Superman? Then we have Wonder Woman. She's second. Or is it Martian Manhunter who's second? Or is it Shazam / Captain Marvel? Is Billy Batson, is he second? Who's number 2? Where's Aquaman rank? I read somewhere that underwater Aquaman is as strong as Superman. So if Superman is in the water with Aquaman, who's stronger? There's no consistency, and so it makes it hard to compare these characters. And I think it adds a layer of inconsistency to it because there is no cap. Like, I understand Superman has incalculable strength, and when they did the Marvel to DC crossover, Superman mentioned nobody had ever hit him as hard as the Hulk did up until that point in one of the early crossovers. But the way I've always framed it like this: within universes, Marvel and DC, their universes have different rules of physics. And I think in the 1990s crossover, where that Born Anagram Comics, it kind of broke down why the Flash didn't have access to the Speed Force in the Marvel universe, because the laws of physics were different in the Marvel universe. Superman's strength, the rules that allowed him to basically have reality warping level strength in the DC universe, didn't necessarily cleanly apply to the Marvel universe. Whereas in the Marvel universe, the Hulk has the capacity for reality warping levels of strength. And so they tried their best to explain it, but I always felt like DC's not really having a scale, but then kind of having a scale. It made it a little bit harder to get into books. I'd read, like, my holy trinity was Marvel, DC, Image. Marvel, DC, Image. No particular order. I read everything from all over. Okay. Let's talk about Deathstroke. Like, I've seen Deathstroke put hands on Batman. How strong is Batman? We say he's a peak human. I've seen Batman do superhuman shit. Regular people aren't lifting tons, bro. Like, I'm sorry. I think Eddie Hall might be close. The closest I've seen. I know the dude that played the Mountain, I don't know if he still has the deadlift record. But I think at the absolute peak where you actually have gear, for those that lift, you understand what I'm saying. Those actually have the gear, like the bench press shirt, and the other stuff. Yeah, you could see somebody deadlift 1,100 pounds at maximum effort. This is one of the strongest human beings on the planet. Batman's casually doing this at 220. No. But like Deathstroke, is Batman a better combatant than Deathstroke's? Yeah, I mean, the comic books say he is. I've seen Deathstroke put hands on Batman, but also Deathstroke, I think, is low-level superhuman. Batman is not. Who's the better fighter? Is it Batman? I know they say Batman is the best fighter in the DC universe. Is it Lady Shiva? Richard Dragon is here. There's Bronze Tiger over here. Batman said that Dick Grayson's a better fighter than him. We have no way to compare these things. And we have feats that, people run down comic book feats, but here's the thing. Comic book feats are inconsistent, man. I've seen Ben Grimm do Hulk level stuff in Fantastic Four books because it just is who's writing the book. So we start doing feats and stuff. There was one feat where it was like, was it Superman, Wonder Woman, and Martian Manhunter literally towed the earth from one place to another. But then I've seen another book where Despero came through and absolutely put hands and feet on the entire Justice League, clapped cheeks. Like, it was ugly. He was manhandling. I got to find it. He manhandled Superman and Wonder Woman all at the same time, bro. He manhandled Superman and Shazam. So Despero stronger than everybody? Like, is he stronger than Superman? I'll pull it up. Superman, Shazam. Like 90s era, Despero was absolutely, like, he was absolutely working the league, bro. So is he stronger than Superman? You see where I'm going with this? Since we have no, I can't find it. There's a panel, there's a very specific panel where the Justice League are all, like, he's fighting all Power Girl, Superman, all at the same time. They're jumping him, bro. They're jumping him, bro. And then here comes Hawkman. Like I said, here comes Hawkman. Hawkman, this dude literally just like he just sunned. I'm gonna show this. I'm actually putting this on the screen because this is nasty work here. Okay, I'm gonna show you this. How strong is Superman really? How strong is Superman really? I'm asking you this. And this is 90s era, and this is one of the issues I have with DC. The level of inconsistency in y'all's books about who's stronger blows my mind. I'm gonna show y'all this because this. All right, so we got Despero, right? I see Power Girl, who's essentially Supergirl. I got Wonder Woman. I got Our Man. There's Shazam / Captain Marvel, and there's Superman, and they're jumping him. Look at this. Look at this. Hands and feet. Like he's whooping them, bro. It's not even close. So is Despero stronger than Darkseid? Is he stronger than Superboy Prime? Nobody knows, guys. That's part of the problem. It's so over the top inconsistent. Where's the one panel that typifies this argument? There's one panel I gotta find where he absolutely just, here it is. And then Hawkman comes in and smacks Despero around. The level, and I feel like it's somatic complaining, guys. I'm really not trying to be on that, but guys, come on, man. Open image, a new tab. I'm about to show this here on the stream. So how strong is this dude? And I know this is 90s era. I know that they've probably retconned this multiple times. I know that they retconned the powers, but this is the thing y'all need to understand is this. This is from the era when I was actually really following comic books. Hopefully this is big enough for y'all to see. So this is him. I don't know who that is. I think that's Wonder Woman on the ground. This is him cracking Superman and Captain Marvel's heads together like little boys. Like little boys. And then Hawkman comes through and puts hands on him. What are we doing? What are we doing? That's one of the problems when it comes to power scaling for DC, bro, because it's so all over the place. They don't really have any level of consistency and it's really writer driven. And that's not a bad thing. But when we get into the nerdy side of it, it makes it harder to build a community around it because it part of the fun of being a superhero comic book fan is comparing who would win in a fight. Okay. I watched Superboy Prime and it wasn't Final Crisis. Was it Final Crisis? Infinite Crisis. There's so many crises. In Infinite Crisis, I watched Superboy Prime slaughter almost an entire platoon of Green Lanterns. Then he walks through two Supermen, walks through them. They can't really do anything. They got to drag him through a red sun, and he still managed to beat one of the Supermen to death. And then the Green Lanterns were just able to show up and say, we got him. We're going to contain him now. We're going to put him in one of the science cells. Threat's over now. How? I understand he's depowered by the red sun, y'all, but come on. And then Hawkman. Hawkman is the one. Hawkman and Aquaman are the ones that absolutely just it's just hard because sometimes Hawkman is fighting on par with Wonder Woman. Other times he's just a regular ass dude. Where does he rank? Where I can look at like Captain America's fighting ability, even though I disagree with Bucky or Winter Soldier being higher ranked than a better fighter. I vehemently disagree with Hawkeye being a better fighter than Captain America. I am calling shenanigans on that. To the point where I almost want to get sign up and edit the wiki myself. There's no way that Hawkeye is a better fighter than Captain America, but at least I have a scale where I could say Captain America's fighting ability is this. So the person is this. Given if we're not utilizing any powers, it's just throwing hands. This person would win. This person would have difficulty. Like, it makes it easier to form these little battles that comic book nerds do. When we, in the absence of that, it gets very difficult. And then you have DC fans that will sit there and try to argue with Marvel fans, like, yeah, man, Batman will come put hands on Moon Knight. Like, hey, man, let me explain something to you. Moon Knight, depending on the cycle of the moon, Moon Knight is anywhere between an enhanced human to superhuman. Lift up to 2 tons, he will pulverize Batman. Or the one that blows my mind the most is, the Batman fans will, and I'm a Batman fan, but Batman fans will say, well, he gives Spider-Man, he's not giving Spider-Man difficulty, bro. Please stop the cap. It's not happening like that. Spider-Man is stronger, faster, more agile. He could literally punch Batman's head clean off of his shoulders before Batman could even register what happened to him. Stop it. Batman at his peak can lift a ton, I think. Spider-Man can casually lift 10 tons, and he's gone up to 25 at times. That's where it becomes difficult to have these conversations. The Hulk versus Superman conversations are always really frustrating. And a lot of times it boils down to what universe are they fighting in. If they're in the Marvel universe, we got to go by what the rules of the Marvel universe are, what the physics rules of the Marvel universe are. If we're in the DC universe, we have to go by what the physics of the DC universe are. Hulk has incalculable strength, but he has to get pissed off enough to access it. Where Superman has that baseline strength, and his strength is almost like it's based on what his determination is and whether he feels like he can cut loose without destroying the planet. And so on one hand, you have a grid that you can kind of loosely power scale people. And then on the other hand, it's just absolute chaos on the DC side. It makes it fun. It does make it fun. But then you have weird panels where some writer who loves Aquaman decides that Aquaman is just as strong as Superman in this specific case. And you're like, nah. And the writer's like, yeah, in this comic book, Aquaman is, he can handle Superman. It's like, okay. Whatever you say. So I think what the bigger point I'm getting to is the core of the argument is DC mythology works in stories. It doesn't necessarily convert to when we're conversing about the heroes and doing the thing that comic book fans do, where we pit the heroes and say this person could fight this person, and we compare the heroes to one another. Okay, since there's no baselines, okay, it really depends on who the writer likes at the time. Like I said, the Moon Knight, for me, it's the Moon Knight versus Batman. Moon Knight is low level superhuman depending on the cycle of the moon. He could be peak human to low level superhuman. Batman is peak human at all times. If they fight, yes, Batman may have the superior ability to bob and weave and everything, but his strikes are going to start hurting him. Like him landing, him making contact. I don't know how many of y'all have punched somebody, but when you punch somebody, there's always a risk that you're going to break your hand, especially if you're punching somebody in the head. You're punching somebody that's vastly more durable than you are under a full moon. Batman's going to injure himself before he injures Moon Knight. And he can't physically harm him. Same thing with Black Panther. Depending on the situation, Black Panther can be low-level superhuman. And so we're talking about durability and everything. We're talking about the mechanics of fighting and stuff. Depending on what the context of the situation is, Batman will hurt himself trying to hurt Moon Knight or Black Panther. And if Moon Knight gets his hands on him under a full moon, he's going to maul. He's going to absolutely maul Batman. It's going to maul him. And there's not a lot that Batman can do. And I know, Batman's fought Bane and stuff like that. Bane doesn't scale the same way because Bane also breaks the scale. And Bane is the reason why you actually do need a scale. How strong is Bane? How strong is Bane? He's superhuman to a degree. But is he stronger than Wilson Fisk? Possibly. He's probably stronger than Wilson Fisk. Is he stronger than Spider-Man? No. Absolutely not. There's no way in hell. Okay. So, like I said, I do wish at some point DC would have some kind of power scaling system so that we can actually have these conversations. Plus, it kind of anchors the writers down a little bit. I feel like there might need to be a little bit of an anchor attached to it. I don't know. I'm just a comic book nerd. What do I know? All right, y'all. I've been on this stream here. Let's see. We're about an hour and 30 minutes. And you sat here and listened to a lot of dead air while I sat there and pulled up stuff about power scaling. I'm going to make that I'm going to redo that and make that a more coherent video that stands on its own. Last thing. So I happened to, while I was getting prepped for the show, I happened to scroll across one of them somehow one of them black men versus black women balloon popping things popped up in my feed. And I'm going through the comments. And I just got to say this. Some of y'all are weird out here, bro. If you don't know what the balloon popping thing is where social media people pick people, where it's like a dating show, essentially, where somebody will walk out and everybody has balloons, and then people will pop their balloons based on what this person says or how they look and stuff like that. It's really dehumanizing, but it's fun it's dehumanizing and can be fun, but dehumanizing. There's a level of problematicness that goes along with it, but I'm not here to get into that. What I am here to get into is the weird parasocial relationship that dudes have with these videos. And I'm saying dudes, I don't know if it's just a male phenomenon, but it's the ones that's mostly what I see, so that's what I'm going to speak to. I've seen dudes on these balloon popping things get mad on behalf of dudes, on behalf of strangers they'll never met. They get mad, like they'll get mad. How dare she pop her balloon for this guy I've never met before? He seems like a great guy. She should absolutely pick him because of what? You would pick him? You want to date the guy? I mean, it's weird. It's a weird parasocial kind of thing. They'll get mad on behalf of absolute strangers. They'll get offended that strangers get rejected. And then they start insulting the woman. Or the other end of it is they reject women that don't even and I wouldn't pick her and blah 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 and blah blah blah. You're rejecting a woman that doesn't even know you exist. She doesn't know you are a person. She doesn't know you exist, but you're rejecting her. Why? I've seen dudes do it on social media with celebrities all the time. Yeah, man, I don't know, man. I wouldn't get with her, but shoot, man. Like, she doesn't even know you exist, bro. If she acknowledged you in public, you would be thrilled. You'd be telling all your boys about it. It's a really weird kind of anger that comes out with this. And I think it is kind of an internalized thing because, some do, like, for the rejection hurts. It's not a fun feeling to go through, being rejected by somebody that you see that you're attracted to. But these dudes internalize it, and it's a weird level of empathy they're extending to complete and utter strangers. Just a weird thing. I don't know. And I think the reason why the content does so well is because it really does touch, it really strikes on something really primal in some of these guys, where how dare she reject him kind of stuff. They identify with it. Hurts by proxy. And then they reject women preemptively as part of this parasocial fantasy. I don't understand it. Here's the bottom line. You're getting mad on behalf of strangers who got rejected in a video you weren't in. Like, go play with your kids or something, right? Go play with your kids or something, bro. Like, it's not that deep. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap it up here, guys. I do appreciate y'all hanging out with me. One of these days I'll be back on Facebook. In a couple of weeks. I am gonna start trying. Next week, I may just try to take this over to TikTok and see how we do. And engage that audience, because I haven't done a live stream over there since I botched the last one. So Um, if you got anything for Ask a Dad, go ahead and shoot it to me. I would love to be able to have those kind of conversations. I want to make this something that has some utility. And that's all I got, y'all. I do appreciate y'all. You can follow me I'm on TikTok. I'm of course on YouTube. I'm trying to be on Facebook, even though Facebook is playing games with me. I do have a Substack that I'm trying to build out. And I'm probably going to be starting whatnot. Is my mic's on? I think my mic was off. I accidentally clicked the exit button. So I'm gonna be putting this on Substack and stuff like that. And eventually, once I build it out, I'll start a community for us just to come together and hang out as Black nerds that are a little bit older. So I appreciate y'all. I will talk to y'all later. It's been Brian with Blurred and Wild Dad. Peace. Peace.